My name is Idan Nimtsovich, and I've decided to dedicate my movie to my grandfather, Efraim Dורשט. Grandfather is a very interesting man, with many contributions to a variety of different things, especially in Ramat Gan, and he had a really interesting life story which I will share with you today. The story starts here, in Lodz, a city in central Poland. Efraim was born here on October 31st, 1931. He is the second son to his parents, Aryeh Yehuda Leib Dורשט, and his wife, Esther Rivka. He had an older brother, Joseph, which was older than he was by 2 years. Aryeh Yehuda Leib and his wife were religious Zionists, and the thought of immigration to Israel was constantly in the back of their minds. Next year, in Jerusalem. The impetus for this grew even more so when in 1933, following the events in Germany of the Nazi Party coming to power, anti-Semitism in Poland grew, and that made the Zionist movement and the desire to immigrate grow bigger and bigger. Aryeh and Esther decided to take their 2 children, 6-year-old Joseph and 4-year-old Efraim, and immigrate to Israel. They turned to the institutions of Agudat Israel and requested certificates and immigration permits. In 1935, the family said goodbye to relatives and friends and got on a train that took them to the port of Constanta in Romania, where they boarded a ship that took them to the port of Jaffa in Israel. The family traveled from Jaffa to Ramat Gan, where Aryeh's cousin lived. Their first stop was on Bialik Street. All 4 family members crowded into one room, and all the tenants in their apartment shared the same bathroom. Joseph and Efraim joined religious schools in the city. Efraim began studying the Talmud Torah of Rabbi Axelrod, where he learned with all the religious children from Ramat Gan. It seemed that despite all the difficulties, the family's life began to get on the right track. In 1938, Esther took Efraim on a trip to Poland to visit their grandparents and uncles. After returning to Israel, just when life seemed to fall into a type of welcomed routine, Esther became ill. Every day doctors arrived on donkeys and tried to find a cure for Esther with no success. Even the hospital didn't know how to treat her illness, and in 1939 she died at the young age of 34. Grandpa was 8 years old at the time. World War II broke out, but the Dורשט family had its own war to fight. Their father closed the business and started working in construction. His brother and he were forced to live in an orphanage for a year, until in around 1942, Aryeh married for the second time to Chaya, and in 1944 they had a daughter named Shlomit. Grandpa tells us Efawa's new mother didn't like them and only showed affection towards her biological daughter. He said that he remembers a very difficult childhood overall. On May 14, 1948, the British mandate ended in Israel, and on Friday, May 15th, Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the Jewish state. Arab armies invaded a day. The War of Independence had begun, and Grandpa joined the newly established Israeli army within the first cycle of the Armored Corps, and he was only 16 and a half. After his initial training, Grandpa was assigned to Company A, Battalion 79, Brigade 7, located in the western Galilee. During the days of the War of Independence, battles broke out all over Israel, from the north to the south. With Kalkji's forces holed up in the northern and part of the southern Galilee, it was decided to initiate an Operation Hiram to send them back to the Arab countries. Brigade 7 also participated in this operation. They were ordered to move towards Sasa in the upper Galilee and drive away the Arab Liberation Army. Efraim obviously took part in this operation. Operation Hiram lasted 60 hours and caused a major flight of Arabs from the Galilee, mainly into Lebanon. It was the last military operation in the northern front and set the northern border of Israel. In 1950, he finished his mandatory service in the IDF, but kept serving in reserves, in which he also completed an officer's course. Grandpa also took part in the Sinai War as operations officer in the Central Armored Battalion and reached Jericho in the 6-Day War. In the War of Attrition in 1969, the Central Armored Battalion held the line between Jericho and the Damia Bridge for 30 days. He finished his army career with the rank of major. In his entire army career, he never filed a complaint against a single soldier. His interpretation was, if I can't get along with someone, the problem is mine, not his. For his role in the Wars of Israel, Grandpa received the medals for the War of Independence, Operation Kadesh, the 6-Day War, and the War of Attrition. He was one of the veterans of the Armor Brigade and is a member of the Yad L'Shirion. After his army service, Grandpa began to build his civilian life. He began working as a driver in a trucking company named Cooperative that transported workers in Israel from place to place. He traveled all over the country in a freight car with benches in the center and on the sides. He knew every road and every corner there was to know. He spent many hours behind the wheel and received many compliments about his driving from all over. After 3 years, he left Cooperative, and instead of transporting employees, he started transporting fuel. During his work transporting fuel, there were 2 things that changed Efraim's life. The first one, also being the most important, he met his future wife, Hannah Witchowski, my grandmother. Grandma says she was invited to a party, where there were some of Efraim's best friends. Among the people at the party, she saw a man sitting quietly. In conversations, every time there was a question or dilemma, she always heard, "We'll ask Efraim." People turned to the quiet man, and somehow he always knew to give the proper solution. She realized that she might be starting to like this quiet man, and since then they've been together. After 2 years, on December 13th, 1960, Efraim and Chana got married. 2 years later, a first daughter was born, my aunt Raya, and in 1970 they added a new girl to the family, my mother Sharon. As the years passed, the girls grew up and added grooms to the family, Doro, my uncle, and Ofer, my father. The second event that altered the course of Grandpa's life occurred while serving in the reserves. Reserve service was nothing unusual, but one Friday afternoon, after finishing training camp in Natan near Be'er Sheva, Efraim and his friends were about to leave the area and go home. Efraim spotted a tank with one of his old friends inside. The tank seemed to have an engine problem, and so my grandpa and his 3 friends decided to help him out. The tank stood on a hill, and to get at the engine, they had to tilt the turret. They tilted the turret, opened the hood, and the 3 of them popped their head inside to examine the source of the problem. Suddenly the gun loosened and began to move towards the door. The others managed to jump out in time, and Grandpa removed his head and body, but didn't manage to take out his left leg in time. The leg took a heavy blow and immediately swelled up. His friends helped him out and got him down, but they were far away from a hospital. Fortunately for them, a car passed by and took Efraim to a hospital to treat his leg. Luckily, he didn't suffer any severe permanent damage, and his leg healed after a few months. The accident, along with meeting my grandma, led Efraim to a decision to stop working in places for days at a time before returning home, and that he wanted to do something else in life. In 1959, he took a job as a mechanic for the municipality of Ramat Gan. One day, an old friend told him that he had been offered a job in the municipality's union resources and asked him if he was interested. He thought about it for a while and took the job. While working in the municipality, Efraim also studied personnel management in the Technion, and in 1963 served as director of the personnel department, now called Human Resources. Being the director of personnel isn't an easy role. It involves fixing labor agreements, handling the personal problems of employees, and taking care of their promotions. Being a social worker, a psychologist, a mother, and a father together. Efraim fulfilled all these with great success until he retired in 1985. While working in the municipality, Grandfather took part in many public activities. Even before working there, he was involved in the management of one of Ramat Gan's professional soccer teams, the Power Ramat Gan. After joining the team's management, he became authorized signatory in its prime, when she won the championship and brought home the cup. When asked to be authorized signatory, he agreed on condition that it would have orderly accounting. Every cent, whether incoming or outgoing, shall be recorded properly. My grandma, Chana, was the first in the country to run orderly accounting for a football team, voluntarily of course, and thus the group was the first who managed accounts with an official accountant in Israel. Many teams came to my grandparents so that they could teach them how to do proper bookkeeping, and they always responded willingly. Grandpa traveled with the team twice outside of Israel, once after winning the cup, and a second time when they flew to the United States to compete in 1973. Though the trip was planned after the Munich Olympic massacre, Grandpa took the team under his own responsibility without escorts because they didn't have the funds of money for the required 2 security personnel, but only for 1. He didn't give up. When necessary, he knows how to be very persistent and get what he wants. With the help of a friend, he met with whoever needed to get a briefing on how and what to do as an escort, and soon enough they left for America. The team achieved results that no Israeli team had achieved in 25 years. Here you can see a letter written by the mayor of Ramat Gan to my grandfather saying, Dear Dosht Efraim, Ramat Gan. Dear Efraim, you have received my gratitude for your efforts in obtaining the achievements in your journey with the Power of Ramat Gan to America. I have heard the team showed exemplary sportive behavior, and their accomplishments in the games are the best seen by any Israeli team in America in the past 25 years. The team's dedication, behavior, and accomplishments brought glory to the city of Ramat Gan and to Israel in the places of competition. May you be blessed for the committed management and accomplishments. With great respect, Dr. Israel Feldman, head of the municipality. Thanks to his devotion, he received the Outstanding Member of the Order of the Maccabees, a prize given to a few people for their contribution to the Maccabee organization. For 15 years, he served as a beneficiary, a public representative for the Court of Labor in Tel Aviv. He was among the first to deal with arbitration on behalf of the court. The tribunal would give him a number of cases and ask him to try to reach a conciliation between the plaintiffs and the defendants. He would read the files, and in most cases he knew to pinpoint the heart of the problem and reach a negotiated solution. Grandpa was also a founder of the Ramat Gan Safari Park. The idea of establishing an open place where animals can roam freely was relatively new and innovative in those days, worldwide. By the end of the 70s, it was decided to move the zoo that was in Tel Aviv because it caused environmental nuisances and did not answer the needs of the animals and or the needs of the visitors. The two mayors of the cities, Tel Aviv Yafo and Ramat Gan, formulated the idea to establish an integrated zoo. Grandfather was the representative of the city of Ramat Gan, and to this day he has a free ticket to the safari. He was also among the founders of the Man and Living Museum, located in the perimeter of the safari, and is a member of the board until today. Upon his retirement, he established the Town Hall's retiree organization and was head of it for a decade until leaving. He is on the national committee of the local government pensioners organization and a member as well as authorized signatory of For the Elderly in Ramat Gan, which manages and operates 42 institutions in the city. This picture shows some more associations that Grandpa is also a member in. In 2001, the municipality of Ramat Gan chose to give Grandpa the Outstanding Citizen of Ramat Gan Award for his great contribution to the city and his many public services. Grandfather is an incredibly interesting man, and I enjoy listening to his opinions and stories until today. I continue to hear new stories about his life every time I see him, and he truly is an incredible, one-of-a-kind person.